Irashaimase! Hello and welcome to Fitaurus Kitchen. I'm your host, Chef Fitaurus. It's time once again for Shoot 'em Up Saturday, and on the menu this Saturday we have AlienCruise, a colorfully bizarre shoot 'em up that just released. What kind of taste will it have? Let's get cooking and find out. AlienCruise from developer Cotton Game and publisher Orenda released in mid-March for the Nintendo Switch and is planned to release late March for the Xbox One. Diving into the menu itself, this is our main menu here, and it kind of gives a little bit of an idea of what kind of design the game has. So rather than give us actual menu prompts, we have all these different icons or objects around this room that we can dive into. And really, the game itself feels like we're diving into a child's imagination and his drawings, and it's really neat that way. When we open up the comic book, we have the ability to go and start a one-player game, or we can choose to start a two-player game. And the game actually is also fairly lengthy, so you have the ability to both continue one-player game or continue a two-player game. For today, I'll be showing this one off as a two-player game, as I feel that's actually a really great way to experience it. So when you start a new game, if you do have any progress saved at this point, then it will ask you if you want to start a new file, and we do. Once that's the case, you get to pick your character, and there are 4 vegetable pilots that we can possibly be. There's the Bean, the head of iBeans, which is our team that we're part of, Mr. Carrot, Mr. Potato, and Mr. Tomato. So for today, I'll be taking Mr. Carrot as that's the ship I like the best. And two-player, we'll be going with Mr. Potato. So we do get this little cutscene as the game begins, but there's no dialogue to it. There's very little text at all, so you can kind of make up your own story. But we're basically just these 4 vegetable pilots going out to free these planets from the enemy. Really a basic story of us versus them, and we're the side of right. Because look at this, how triumphant we appear as we set out to defeat the enemy. So the game starts you off with a tutorial that will allow you to get used to the controls, as well as give you some power-ups before you choose which planet you want to start your attack on. So we have the ability to move. Our ship also has the ability to fire. And this last one here is a little bit confusing, but we actually have the ability to dash. If you're moving in a direction and you press any of the shoulder buttons on the Switch, then you'll do a short burst, but it does use up energy that you can see down below. There are several power-ups throughout the course of the game that we can go and pick up. We've got shields that we can obtain. There's also bombs, and there are several secondary fire weapons that we can get. The one that is available in this little tutorial section is the homing missile. As far as the weapon power-ups are concerned, so there are a couple colors. If it's what looks like a shot that's with a yellow background, then that's a primary fire power-up. If it's got a blue background to it, then that means it's a power-up for a secondary weapon. We can also collect 1-ups, but one thing that's interesting is you can't actually exceed a total of 3 1-ups, and that becomes very important in 2-player especially, as if you run out of lives, it's possible to share lives from another player. So once we're through our tutorial, we're taken to this screen here, which we can select any of the 6 worlds that are available from the start. So there might actually be some other worlds you might encounter as you go through the game. But we're going to start with the one that was the tutorial world as well. Welcome to the Star of Par, Kansas. So the enemies in this game are really bizarre. Like I said, it kind of is like we're diving into this game that's someone's comic book imagination or fantasy of these vegetable heroes going out to save the universe, and that wonderfully bizarre image we have here just is captured so well in the graphics and the colors of the stages. And each of the worlds is uniquely different with different enemies, different backgrounds, and sometimes even just like different like texturing to the way that the stage is set up. Also, I love when all the enemies blow up. You've got this like big, almost like comic book boom, boom, boom popping off. So one of the items that I haven't mentioned, there's this like 3 triangles. That one is your to increase your boost, as your meter itself has a finite amount it can charge up. If you go and pick up additional boost power for it, then the meter will charge to a greater extent. So this is one area where we do get a little bit of text. Strong turbulence ahead. Just that pineapple guy giving us a little bit of a warning of what is to come. In addition to being able to acquire different secondary weapons like the homing missile that we currently have, it's also possible to get many different primary weapons as well. And hopefully we'll be able to go and pick some up here shortly. A lot to try and get around with both the wind and the enemies trying to attack us in this part. The shields are really useful, as it does give you basically an extra life where we can't stockpile lives past 3. It definitely feels great to have that extra buffer. One thing that the game feels a little bit rough on, and there's actually a few things really that I feel are rough in this game. Sometimes the hitboxes on the terrain in particular is hard to judge, as it's uneven and hand-drawn. Every once in a while you'll find yourself taking a hit that you're like, what? Didn't feel like I was even close to that. But really, like, the hand-drawn look at the game is a lot of the charm. And, well, that's the end of the first stage. A lot of times it just ends really abruptly. Sometimes you have a boss fight, sometimes you don't. So from here, let's go ahead and look at a couple of the other worlds. So you can use the select to go and drop yourself back to the world select, and we can pick a different one, like this one here, Star Toltec. This one starts out very differently as we're flying through the clouds, just attacking these enemies that are coming our way. And here we can see a different kind of weapon. This is the wave. So this is unfortunately at like level 2, so it hasn't really powered up. But if I do pick up this power up, then you can see it gets a little bit faster. So actually that was at level 1, my bad. And then at like level 2, the wave will be going in like 5 different directions, providing a lot more coverage as far as your shot's concerned. There's also a bounce primary weapon, and also there's a really neat shotgun as well. That one's kind of my favorite, as it's like kind of feels like it's the most powerful, but I guess it would really depend on the situation. And that's basically AlienCruise served up for your enjoyment. As far as minus flavors are concerned, so really the game just like feels like it has a little bit of a roughness to it. So there are definitely differences and imbalances in the way that some of the stages are. Some of the stages are super long and difficult to get through. Others are like so short they disappear in the blink of an eye, and that's kind of the way that the bosses are as well. If you don't have any particular power-ups, it's possible that some of the boss fights will be almost impossible, but with the right power-ups, sometimes like they seem almost trivial. So here we're coming up on the boss of this particular stage, which has to go around through me, unfortunately. So, one thing that is unique about the characters, the different vegetables that we're playing, they're actually basically the same, save for their bomb. So the carrot here has this really neat missile barrage, which is very effective at taking out these boss characters that we are fighting. And the potato has a really neat Chinese throwing star that it tosses at the enemies, and it just like bursts and does continuous damage at them. So with that boss finished, then we move on to the next stage, which is inside the planet star Toltec. And from here, we'll end looking at this planet, the Star of Vidar. But as far as plus flavors are concerned, I feel like this game is just loaded with content. There's really quite a bit here. Each of the worlds actually has a decent bit of length to them. And you start with 6 with even more potentially showing up. Is really awesome. And then you just have that like wonderful, colorful, bizarre art aesthetic that the game itself has. Like I said, it's just really fun, like you're playing in somebody's imagination, and just seeing that is, it just adds a fresh, well, feeling to this particular shoot 'em up. So that'll just about wrap it up for this week's episode of Shoot 'em Up Saturday. AlienCruise is definitely a title that I can go and recommend, especially if you're looking to go and play 2-player co-op shoot 'em up. Alright, well, I want to thank you so much for coming out and joining me this week, and as always, I look forward to seeing you again next week.